Good morning, gentlemen. I thank you all for taking your time off on a Saturday to listen to us. And thank you, Siddharth, for the introductions. And then I would like to start on today's topic, ensuring consistent performance through sales and marketing process. So firstly, my name is Renukaprasad Belgur, as introduced by Siddharth. I'm one of the program mentors at MentorSquare Advisors. Today, we will dwell on sales and marketing processes to ensure a consistent overall performance. And before we start, this is going to be something like some of the sessions that you people would have probably seen, like finance for non-finance mentors. This is coming from a non-marketing professional, marketing for a non-marketing professional. So all the learnings here are from my experience with our members, as well as my experience in dealing with the marketing teams. Often, people would love to have their sales charts as per a copybook style going up consistently, quarter on quarter. At least that's what the expectation is. But in reality, the chart resembles something like our share market index, rather than what they would like it to go up, keep going up and up quarter on quarter. Now, how does one take control of this? Let's delve a little bit into this. So the challenges here would be the markets in themselves, people and processes. And one of the major areas that we keep insisting is the lack of planning in terms of processes. So let's dwell what is this process approach typically. So I would like to typically begin dissecting a typical business scenario into two areas. One, I would like to call it as an external world, which is all about the customers, the markets, products and services which reach into these markets. And the internal world is an organization or a company where we have people, plant and processes churning out products and services. So most of us are very familiar with the internal world, and as soon as we create an organization consisting of people and plant, and we start putting in processes there, because we are very much comfortable and we are aware of that. Typical process would be, as soon as we get an order, we know how to convert it. Either if it requires design, we design it. Then it is obviously it's got some purchase elements, so we start getting into procurements. Then it goes into production, testing, quality, and then into customer inspection and shipping. So these are the typical processes that we all know, and we all know how to control them. So now, similar concept, let's look at it. Supposing you want to get consistent purchase orders getting into your company. So how does one control that? Let's start looking a little bit deeper into this. So let's take a step back. I talked about the organization. Let's take a step back and find out what does the organization typically consist of. Any organization typically consists of a plant or a facility, what one would like to call it as. And of course, we couple it with people. And then the third most important element are the processes. And then guiding all these three should be the business strategy. So the business strategy getting divided in terms of marketing strategy, in terms of production strategy, in terms of various other strategies. Often, when people want to produce or people want to gear up or scale up, they have a plant, ready plant, and they add people, and they expect wonders to happen. It just does not happen. So we need to have not only the right kind of people, apart from that, we also need to have the right kind of processes in place. So this is an area where we contribute in quite a lot of our members in terms of putting in the right processes which are required. So let's dwell a little bit on today's particular current topic of how do I make my sales or a marketing process consistent. Often, companies are always measured with only the order books, typically. So people always say, my order book is full, so I don't have to do much, so I'm very happy, right? But the issue here is we need to look at how consistent are these. Supposing all my targets are given in terms of how much of order book a marketing team closes in. but there is a whole lot of things that happens from the customer to the stage of getting into an order book. Let's try to look at, in a typical scenario, what happens. The first thing is the marketing department does, they identify a new opportunity or a lead, and then there are a whole lot of processes coming in. So let's look at one of them one by one. But the current process in most companies that I have seen in the SME sector would be they only have identified leads and then they have purchase orders. That's all. They don't worry much about what happens between these two stages. But this is an area of concern, and that's the area of the topic that we are talking about today. It's all about process, putting in a process. So let's look at what is the process. Having identified a new opportunity or a lead, the next thing that happens is the initial communication that we contact the customer, find out what the requirements are. Then that means we make a contact. Let's call this process as stages, sales process stages. Maybe we could call it as SP1 and SP2, etc. So that for an easy understanding. The next, after having contacted the customer, is that we start getting into qualifying the lead. I have got a lead. I see an opportunity, but does it qualify my requirements? If I'm selling a particular item, so I need to say whether it's a qualified lead, is it qualified good enough for me to take it further on. So that means this is a stage, SP3 is a stage of qualifying the leads. This is an extremely important step. Most of this SMS sector people have seen in the initial stages, they keep on collecting whatever that comes to their, it's like as the wind blows. There is no strategy in place. After some time, they have to get into some kind of strategy so that you can focus on a particular group of customers or a focus on a particular type of product or a service that you are giving out in the market. So after the qualifying the lead stage, one has to get into a product or a solution mapping stage. Having had the lead qualified, we need to find out whether the products and solution that we are offering, are they in line with the leads or the requirements. So this is the stage where you map your internal product and solutions to the requirement. We could probably call it as a next stage. Then the other stage of we get into proposals. Once these are mapped, we get into a proposal stage. In a proposal stage, we start preparing the proposal based on what the customer wants. Often I have seen people, as soon as they get an inquiry, start running towards a proposal. This is where, and later on, after some time, they find out this particular inquiry, the person who created that inquiry or sent out that inquiry does not have the authority to convert it in order. He just took it probably for the budgetary purposes. That's what happens in quite a few institutional sales. So it's very, very important that you qualify the lead so that based on that, there's an effort of quite a tremendous amount of effort that goes into proposals which is not being paid. So all the wrong proposals that you prepare or the proposals that you do not win are paid for by the proposals that you win. So that's something which you need to keep in mind before taking it to this particular stage of proposals. Having given the proposals, typically obviously that thing that happens is we go and meet the customers in terms of, it could be multiple iterations in terms of understanding the requirement better, trying to convince him that whatever proposal that you have made is the best possible one, looking at the ultimate solution. In most of this proposal business, one has to look at what product solution that one is offering rather than what the customer requires. That's extremely important. It could be in the short run you might win by trying to give out whatever you have, but in the long run, if you want to have a customer and have a consistent order book position, you need to see to it that your particular offer or a solution meets the customer's requirement. This is extremely important. So we could probably call it the next stage. And then, of course, after making the discussions, the most important stage comes to negotiations. So this is where the customer starts looking at my expectations and your proposal and starts going about it, negotiating the whole deal. And then finally, ultimately, it results based on a number of stages in a particular organization that they have. So then it results into a purchase order. So your marketing team, the activities of the marketing team needs to be divided in these kind of process steps or the stages that one could call it as, and start monitoring them. And often one should know very well that the time from which a particular lead or an opportunity gets converted into a purchase order could be few weeks, could be few months. In some of the large institutional orders, it could be even years. So whenever this timeline period is extremely large, one has to be extremely careful to see right now all our targets are set on getting consistent order book to your company, but there is a whole lot of process that you need to do today so that 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, your order book is consistent and full. So that is extremely important. So we need to extrapolate the processes that happens from the purchase order stage onwards right up to the customer level. Now, so far we all understood on the processes. Let's slightly reverse this in terms of flow. Let me take it to something what looks like a funnel. The same process. We'll map it to the next slide. So we just now discussed about the sales process steps. So what we typically call as in the jargon as a sales funnel. So now let's look at this process. So these processes are the same that we just now saw. A typical new opportunity, and then we have an initial communication. Then we have qualify the lead as one of the stages, product or a solution mapping. Then we get into proposals, then meeting and discussions and negotiations, finally resulting in a purchase order. So now the same steps have been depicted here to represent a funnel. So this is what is funnel all about typically. So now when you see the funnel, the purchase order that flows through obviously is from the 10 or 20 or 100 leads that you get, all of them do not get converted. Supposing your hit rates, which we are going to talk about later on, is 10%. So to get one conversion, you need to have 10 opportunities. So that's one of the major important. Let's dwell a little bit on that. So now what are the other elements? Let's look at them. Typically, these stages could also divided into cold, warm, and hot based on how hot is the inquiry and depending on the stages. So, and often these stages, this is a generic display of stages that I'm sharing with you, but often these could be slightly different or modified based on an individual or a particular requirement. You need to analyze what sales process steps that you need to go through by the time a lead or an opportunity gets converted into an order. So this needs to be customized. And then apart from, is this process mapping alone, is it enough for me? One needs to look at it. So supposing I talked about the hit rate, which we are going to see further down, how do I maximize my resources? So in order to maximize my resources and also to arrive at a proper marketing strategy, one needs to have a lot of data. So that data has to come from categorization, obviously. So one of the categorization which is extremely important is to identify the lead or an opportunity has come from which particular source bucket of my process. Let's look at this, what we could call it as source buckets of information. So your lead or an opportunity can get generated from, let's say, from telemarketing calls. It could come from direct mailers, what you identify a customer and send out letters to him. It could even come from internet portals, from your company website. And surprisingly, we see this trend that is happening. One of the engineering companies, which is traditionally doesn't sell anything through the web, I see the volumes going up to 20% of their business comes for an SME, that too, comes from the internet portal. So it's a phenomenal tool that one should use to have good amount of conversions. There could be others like advertising, which is an expensive proposition typically, but of course generates a brand equity which is intangible and not directly results into business. And exhibitions and trade shows. That's also an expensive proposition, but often if you want to hit a particular target audience, people do work on exhibitions and trade shows. Then you have seminars, where you showcase a particular expertise, your company's expertise, and then probably if the customers are there, that could result in some opportunities in terms of networking and discussion that normally happens in these seminars. And then finally, the most important element that we have noticed is referrals. These referrals are an extremely important source of information that one needs to identify. Whenever we visit this, quite a few of our members, in our assignments, we even keep hearing, referrals are giving me extremely high conversion rates, almost close to 30 to 40%, sometimes even 50%. That means every alternate referral that I've got is got converted into an order. Because the referrals is always done from word of mouth. Somebody is recommending, who's a neutral person, who's recommending has got higher chances of conversion rather than you tom-tomming your product. So from all the other sources. So if you identified referral is one of your most important sources, then one needs to have a strategy. How should I increase my referrals? Often I hear from people talking about, they do understand Oh, referrals gives me a very good hit rate. But what is that you're doing in terms of efforts to generate referrals? He says whenever we visit customers, we also ask them to give us referrals. That means it has become a piece-time activity. It is not a direct driven activity that they need to generate referrals as an activity so that they have to start calling them their old customers, old clients, their contacts, suppliers, vendor, whoever, who could put in a word to get some opportunities or leads in place. So this is something which we need to look at. So we need to identify the particular opportunity lead come which particular source bucket. Typically, of course, the two areas that is divided, I think all of you must be aware of in terms of the bottom portion, especially once you get into the mapping layers and qualifying the leads areas, it becomes more of a sales cycle, and the rest of the operations above are marketing cycles. And even beyond this, there is a marketing cycle in terms of identifying the opportunity itself and how to generate inquiries. That's another exercise that should take you to generate number of inquiries to have a consistent flow. So I talked about the hit rates. The hit rates are pretty simple. They're nothing but depending on your categorization of a product, industry, or a segment, or a geography, and you need to find out from a which source bucket what are the hit rates I'm getting. Hit rates are nothing but if I get 10 inquiries, how many to get converted into order. So based on your past experience, from the past data that you have, you can get into quite a good amount of data analysis, crunching to give you an idea of the hit rates from each of these sources that you have. Based on the hit rates, you direct your sales team so that go up to this particular segment of a market based on, let's say, a particular industry. Today, the auto industry is going through a little difficult phase. So supposing your major portion of your strategy comes from auto sector, then you need to see, obviously your opportunities of the funnel will start drying down. So you need to start directing that resource that you have to maximize the effectiveness, go towards another sector. Could be a power sector, could be energy sector, whatever. So that's a matter of strategy. So but the strategy, primary strategy information itself by itself comes from the analysis of hit rates. Let's look at what are the segments. Typically a customer, we can't put all customers in one basket, so we need to categorize them properly so that we get the particular, we're able to channelize. So the segmentation could be in terms of industry, it could be in terms of geography, it could be in terms of customer size, small, medium, large. My sweet spot is only customers with 50 crores or 100 crore turnover. There could be some classifications and categorization based on that. And geography, obviously, to have a reach based on a particular area. Of course, the industry further could be divided into a lot of other sub-segments like automotive industry, electronics industry, or an FMCG or a food processing industry. So based on your area of expertise, your area of approach, you could start directing them, and also based on the market conditions. So time and again, the industry can go through cycles of up and down. So that's needed in order to level it. Supposing your one particular segment of industry, your business starts drying up, you start channelizing your marketing team for other industry. So that means the biggest advantage here with this kind of data analysis is that today you will know where what you're going to achieve 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line. Otherwise, what happens in a conventional scenario if you don't have all this data, you will only wake up after 3 months to 6 months to see that your pipeline is all dried up. So that's not good for any organization. So your sales or marketing team has to be running much ahead of the delivery. We talked about the organization as one as a delivery mechanism, another one as the marketing or a sales which is external. So the delivery always lags the marketing team, and the marketing team should be much ahead based on your conversion rates and conversion cycles. It should be ahead of the game. That's extremely important, and this analysis will help one to keep track of that particular time of what's happening into this analysis. And in order to get to this analysis, these are not pretty simple that we're talking about, pretty basic. So you don't need anything very great packages or software to do all this. So one could even look at using the great Excel files, and in the particular Excel here it easily understands. So here it's not good enough to know that how many inquiries or particular offers or proposals are in what stage. We need to look at from what source buckets these are coming. This particular table will talk about that. So that we need to identify the rich veins which are good for me. And then afterwards, there's another table with the same data, which is seen in a different fashion. This particular data talks about how to achieve consistently. As long as your different various stages, let's say your product has been categorized into segment A, B, and C or specials, and then you start looking at it, what am I doing, and week on week. So as long as you see a constant progress of things happening, that means I don't have the orders here. but still the inquiries are there, so they are just slowly moving in. As long as this positive trend you see, you are in control. So this will assure you that you have a consistent performance time on week. That's extremely important. The main aspect of that is monitoring it on a periodic basis. So here, let's look at the sales funnel. So the same data that you see, again, it's only presented in a different fashion, segment A, B, and C. And then here, the SP1 to SP6 are the processes that you see. That means, what is the order book, what is the value of inquiries that I have in stage 1, SP1, and then how much am I converting here. So as long as this conversion rate, this particular chart talks about the conversion rate, I think the first one is about 10% conversions. That means unless you have 100 there in SP1, you're not going to see 10 conversions here. That's extremely important. And also, as I told you about the categorization, you may have different types of products that you have, and based on this, you could have a chart of have a chart to see the shape. The one you see on the bottom right hand corner, as in terms, it just looks like a funnel. As long as your shape of it for the first look looks like a funnel, that means you are under control. The moment you see the shape going higher, then you know that you need to increase your effort in terms of generating enough leads or moving them, or I have lots of leads, but they're stuck because my people in proposal team are not geared up to give proposals. So you will exactly know what's happening in this particular stage. And some of the common say software that are available in the market are typically, quite a few of them are SaaS based. That means you don't have to have any big investments in terms of that, and also they're pretty scalable, fairly reasonable, or what you would see at Salesforce, or it could be Microsoft Dynamics CRM, it could be Zoho, or a simple Excel. You don't need any high sounding software as long as you're good at Excel itself. So it depends on what you want to do, but there are lots of options available. So the next important aspect of this is inquiry logging and tracking. What happens often, one large inquiry, let's say you're in the region of 10 crores and there's one big inquiry of 20 crores or 30 crores, get stuck in the new opportunity or initial area. And then we get pretty satisfied with the funnel looking like a funnel, right? So often what happens is that clouds are thinking, and we think the funnel is fine, we are healthy, and we are going to achieve what we have set out to do. But often what happens is each of this, depending on a particular product segment that you have, you need to arrive at what is the reasonable time frame with which it starts moving. So you need to start mapping how things move, let's say from SP1 to SP2 to SP3 to SP4, as long as this movement for a particular segment of your product is reasonable, so which is again by your experience. So you can you can take it on account to generate this funnel. Supposing there are certain things which get stuck for too long, the person is not decided, they're not very sure, or they don't have a budget, or whatever could be the reasons. If you see them get stuck for a long time, then automatically we have to defer them out of this. That means you don't take it into account, because that will completely crowd the whole funnel scenario. So once you say you set a particular time limit, let's say items from segment A should get converted within say 3 months, and if you see something not moving, automatically take it off the list. So when you are measuring a particular salesperson's or a sales team's performance, start looking at that and defer it. Once you defer it, you will see the real picture of the scenario, what's going to happen. And the bottom two figures that you see here of the funnels is what you need to keep looking at it. The one on the left is a pretty ideal scenario. The one on the right says often we keep hearing people that we are very full in our order book and we are very happy. So in such a scenario, typically what happens, you see the picture on the right, people are very comfortable now, right? But 3 months down the line, they are going to be dry without any orders. So that means 3 months down the line, what is going to happen, I can predict it today if I have this mechanism in place. So the funnel no longer looks like a funnel, but it looks like a balloon, right? So this is very important. That's the time. Today, the moment I see my the funnel top shrinking, so we need to start looking at, I need to increase my inquiries. I need to increase my inquiry. I don't have contact filters. Then you start looking at databases, how to get contacts, start mapping the customers, dig through your data, mine your old from your database to get your customers in place. Have I contacted them? Have I approached the alternate suppliers? Alternate people? Supposing I'm supplying a particular auto segment. Let's say I'm a supplier to one particular auto segment who is making clutches. So now we need to start looking at, have I covered all those guys who are making clutches? Often we find this is a very simple mathematical approach people miss out. They say, no, we are in the auto segment and we are supplied to 2 or 3. But how many are there in the play? They will say about 50 or 60. We won't have even approached very few of them for whatever reasons. So this will help us start looking into these kind of strategic decisions that one can make based on data. So another thing that often when we talk to our members, they talk about justifications. Why have we not achieved? Typically, they say market is down. This is a very common example that we get. Market is down, so the whole scenario is pretty bad. Most bosses will accept it. Yes, the scenario is down, market is down. But the issue that one needs to look at is, what is my market share? If I am a 0.5% or a 0.01% player, the market fluctuation is absolutely does not affect me at all. All that I need, if I have 2 customers, all that I need is to increase it to 4. That's all. So that does not go as high as unless I am a very large supplier. Let's say I have a 20% or a 30% or a 40% market share. It makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. If your market share is too low, you always have the opportunity. So this is something which one needs to look at. And often most people are inward looking rather than outward looking. So supposing they are supplying to a particular type of market, they don't even know what is the total size of it in India, what is the size of it abroad. So what is the world market? What is my market? What's my share? So that's an analysis extremely important. Often I would recommend people to start building up the database from the ground up, which are pretty accurate, what they have done, and then start looking at the market data. People talk about press releases, then the CMI data or economic criteria data. Start that will sit at the top, and your actual data will sit at the bottom. You start analyzing, where am I? So you need to have an eye towards the market, which is very, very important. This is something which we feel people are lacking. And of course, the next strategic tool that one can always have is to look at this 2x2 matrix, which talks about the products which are existing and new, and the markets which are existing and new. Obviously, the quadrant 1 is the most people where they operate, but they should start looking at by introducing newer products to the existing segments in quadrant 3, and also by looking at developing new markets which they have not explored using existing products. So in the quadrant 2, and of course the quadrant 4 is the most important element to keep you on a long term, where you introduce new products to new markets. So that would probably require some development activity, etc., and R&D, things like that. So this kind of an approach will help us by mapping them where your current customers are, where you would like to be. So this will create enough opportunity to see that your performance becomes consistent. So in all that, whatever we have seen through the whole process of putting in a marketing or a sales strategy, obviously a strategy is nothing but a plan of action to achieve a desired goal, right? So the market strategy could be market data, analyzed and converted into a strategy. And so that you can increase your hit rates for probably the product types, customer segments, or source markets, etc. So unless you have this kind of a little bit of time that you spend on analyzing the whole data and the process that happens, your actions will be again stinted. So that otherwise you are taking actions based on some gut feel or based on some hindsight without any data. So this will help you take action based on data. That's extremely important. Having arrived at a particular strategy based on this data, one of the most important that you need to do is communicate this strategy down to your teams. Your team could be distributed all over the world or all over the country. See that they're all communicated so that the particular information is distributed and they're all aware of what's happening, where the organization is going through. That's how we can generate and direct an organization, sales organization, to get what you want. And one of the most important mantras of the whole marketing and the sales approach is all about rigor. Extremely important. It's no rocket science. Week on week, evaluating yourself on where you stand in terms of marketing reviews. 2 weeks or 1 month is too long a period for you to lose, so that you cannot afford to lose. You need to know where you are week on week. Extremely important in terms of marketing. So wherever you are today, with today's technology, you can review it even while you're on move. So there is no need for you to be in one place. There's no need for a physical meeting. So you review it online, review it on phone, whatever. But review it week on week to see where you are. So rigor is extremely important. So the key takeaways that so far you have learned is to work on putting in a process, understand that marketing is also a process, and categorization of customers in terms of geography, size, and industry, categorizing your products, whether you have put certain things in standards, systems, and specials. Typically, what happens is why we do the product categorization. Some of the specials that you may be doing for your customers might take a little longer time, right? 3 months, or 4 months, or 6 months. So, but some of the things that we could sell it as a standard off the shelf, like a catalog items. So you need to have these cycles of this in terms of delivery and getting a customer are different. That's the reason why you need to group them. So this will help you in trying to get into. First, you need to look at it how to categorize my product. Then we need to look at the sales process steps that we learned, then the source buckets that we need to identify, ultimately get into hit rates and how to maximize hit rates. Controlling timeline, when it happens, is the most important thing. As long as you control the top line as well as the time, you will achieve successful and consistent results. So let's look at some of the examples that we've been able to implement through MentorSquare. We have done this pretty successfully in a company manufacturing electrical components, and they had a team of about 25-30 people in the sales team distributed all over the country, and we just gave them the tool and then told them this is the basics of how to implement the tool, and they just came back and implemented. Then they see what they were talking about 1x currently, it became 10x in terms of their visibility. Visibility is one word we use in market to talk about which gives you a comfort. That means how far your company, you're able to see your company through. That means do you have a visibility of 1 quarter or 2 quarters? So longer the visibility, that much more sustainable, that much more consistent your performance would be. Otherwise, if your visibility is just about a week or 10 days, or I don't know, I'm collecting orders as they come by, you have no visibility. That means you don't know what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen a week after that. So that is something which we need to be very sure of in terms of visibility. And all this they have done it using the power of Excel coupled with a BA tool, what's called a ClickView, and that gives all this graphs in terms of funnel and things like that. You can choose the way your people are comfortable with. Ultimately, what is most important that I mentioned to you is about the rigor in implementation, extremely important. We also done something similar exercise in one of our members who was into manufacture of instruments, and they did not have a marketing team. Almost about for 15 years they have been doing in business as the wind blew, as the opportunity came by, but no longer. If you want to grow at a particular rate, you have to get into market. People are not going to come to you on their own. So you need to get into market by selling or marketing. So we need to create that. Extremely important. Go after the markets. So it's nothing wrong with that. And then if you want to assure yourself to be assured of your performance, you need to work on this. So their marketing thing, what they had, became almost 3 times with better visibility just by adding a couple of people, and they're using Salesforce as their current monitoring and measure tool. One other member where we have who has successfully implemented a similar system is a manufacturer of machinery, which helped them in doing a better product categorization, mapping his customers in various geographies in India as well as abroad. And this has increased him to have a better flow and better visibility. So that the meetings they do today are for the one's performance which they're probably going to see 6 months or 3 months or 6 months hence down the line. So that means they're better prepared to take on with the information of today. That's what they've been able to successfully do it. So thank you all for your patient listening.